One of the most interesting things that Nintendo has probably ever done, and I would say skyrocketed them to popularity in the modern age, is the Nintendo Directs. When these were first launched back in like 2011 or so, I know it was the early 2010s with Reggie Fils-Aimé, where they did a Nintendo 3DS Direct and everything, people were skeptical on whether this was going to catch on or not. Everyone talked about how Nintendo needed to be at the big show at E3. And I remember there was a huge controversy back then that Nintendo is skipping E3, that the Wii U is failing so bad, they're not even showing up. And that was the talk that dominated everything.
Yes, a lot of people do watch those Nintendo Directs, but it's an echo chamber. They're Nintendo fans. They're the people that are on my Twitter account calling me a bad person for thinking bad things about Nintendo, despite the fact that I really like the company. This is not an effective way to get the sales that they need.
You had writers from IGN and from different places stating that Nintendo needs to be at E3 with a live conference, otherwise they are bowing out of the competition when it comes to Microsoft and Sony, and they can't compete with them. And everyone felt that E3 live conferences, stage shows were going to be the future. Now, one thing that I remember seeing back, especially when Nintendo had that massive Wii U Nintendo Direct back in 2013, it was the January Wii U Direct. I said from that point on that Nintendo Directs are actually the future. That can be better than an E3 presentation because it gives you news directly without all the other BS and really silly type of stage shenanigans and things that Nintendo's kind of failed on in the last number of years prior to that point, like we saw with the Wii Music and other different things that they've done overall. Very memeable moments. And very funny, but not necessarily great when it comes to what you want to do to sell your platform. So I think that with that first big Wii U Direct back in 2013, you kind of saw the future, or more like I saw the future. And then as they kept on going, they got better and better and refined the Nintendo Directs each time. Now, is each Nintendo Direct a blockbuster hit with all these great, huge, fantastic games, Mario and Zelda and everything announced? No, but what Nintendo Directs do is that they shine a spotlight on games maybe you wouldn't have noticed at all, certain third-party games. Then, of course, it's a big, grand stage and spectacle for those big new first-party games that are coming out, or games that you want people to take a look at. And now we have direct correlation with some of the view numbers, which we've known for years now, that big Nintendo Directs always draw crazy numbers, but it's actually even bigger than maybe you expected. Shout outs to my man Stealth and Genki. They put up some stats on the Nintendo Direct, and this is pretty mind-boggling overall. On Twitter, Stealth had this to say: Nintendo has had 3 out of the top 5 biggest gaming/tech events of the year so far. This is based on the peak amount of viewers. Nintendo Directs cause endless rumors, speculation, arguing, and hype. It's what Nintendo fans want. And if you look at this here, there is this graph and you see biggest gaming/tech showcases of 2025 based on total peak viewers of each live streamed event. So the actual live stream event, and then you look at it here, you have January 1st through the September 12th, 2025. Then you have the Nintendo Direct on March 27th. Then you have the Apple event on September 9th. And then you have another Nintendo Direct on September 12th with 2.92 million. And as you can clearly see here, even beating out Apple when it comes to their most recent presentation with the Apple event 2025. And of course, the Nintendo Direct. That kind of tells you this Nintendo Direct thing, like, it still has some juice in it. I think it's still going to keep going and even getting bigger and bigger as time goes on. And of course, as the Nintendo Switch 2 gets more and more popular. Then you have the Summer Games Fest in 2025 there with 3.08. And then with pretty much double plus here, you have the Nintendo Direct Switch 2 showcase as well. So if you're looking at it here, that Nintendo Direct Switch 2 showcase, that was massive because it was showing off the Switch 2 itself. But even if you look at the September 12th Nintendo Direct that we recently had, 2.92, then of course that other Nintendo Direct. And I think that Nintendo's next presentation next year is probably even going to beat out this one, because you're going to have more viewers, you're going to have more people with the Nintendo Switch 2, you're going to have a stacked end of the year with all of those games, that's going to bring in a lot more people to purchase the Nintendo Switch 2. So even next year, it's just going to get bigger and bigger, and the stakes are going to get bigger and bigger as we get closer to Nintendo's biggest system sellers for the Nintendo Switch 2. Like, for example, a brand new big 3D Mario, a big new Zelda game, a big new Animal Crossing game, Gen 10 Pokemon, games like that. So I think that it's only going to continue to go up from there, but Nintendo made the right call more than a decade ago to move over and to move away from those clunky live presentations that I said were clunky and weird even back then. I remember there was one time where Shigeru Miyamoto was doing a live demo of The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword on the Wii, and because of all the cell phones and interference, the controller didn't work well. So it completely messed up this live stage demo for this huge game that everyone is anticipating. That's not good, especially when everyone is watching. If you're doing a Nintendo Direct, you can do it in a controlled environment where that type of nonsense will not happen. Or even if you look at back, what was it, 2011, when Nintendo first showed off the Wii U and they didn't show the system properly. They did it right then and there, and therefore it just caused some confusion with some journalists out there that spread that it was just a tablet controller. If you look at it from an editing perspective, you could have easily shaped that a bit better when it comes to that reveal. So I think that Nintendo Directs are here to stay. The edited shows are here to stay. And in this day, when it comes to how expensive everything is, when it comes to how much it costs to run everything, you don't want to have those type of big mistakes, especially with a brand new system or with huge software like Fire Emblem Fortunes Wii, for example. So it makes sense to actually have these controlled events, and they're going to continue being big because now the whole industry kind of does Nintendo Directs. Microsoft, Sony, third-party companies, some of them even call them just Directs as well. They just completely taken the name. So obviously they started a worldwide and industry trend, and it's one of those things that you're going to continue seeing more and more people just do, as it's shown to be incredibly effective overall. So what do you guys think about this when it comes to Nintendo and their Directs, and how it kind of changed the course of showing off new games and presentations and systems and tech? Let me know in the comment section below. But before we get into the next topic, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos as soon as they drop. All right, and moving on to the next topic here, let's talk about Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, because this game is interesting. It is the first game from Koei Tecmo's newly formed AAA games studio. So it's definitely good to see that they are putting them to work right away. And I would say this, the fact that Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity sold multiple millions, I think 4 million to 5 million units at this point, I think all of that essentially funded, yes, we want to build a studio specifically to maybe work with Nintendo directly on Hyrule Warriors games or on collaboration games with Nintendo. This AAA game studio, well, this is their first game. This could be a little bit more of a covert thing to where they have something with Nintendo to where they're always working on some type of Warriors game with Nintendo IP. Maybe we see Xenoblade. Maybe we see something else. Maybe they revisit Fire Emblem. We got 2 Fire Emblem games from them when it comes to a Warrior style game. Maybe they revisit that after Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, because I do think that this game, Age of Imprisonment, is going to be very good and sell well, just like Age of Calamity did. So that's definitely exciting out there when it comes to a big new AAA game studio, and the fact that the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be funding that, and they're actually putting studios together to build for this platform. I think in the past with the Nintendo Switch 1, because they didn't really have much confidence in Nintendo overall, although Koei Tecmo did, but a lot of companies didn't. You didn't see them build specific studios. You didn't see them handle a lot of stuff in-house. It was always other types of things, but now you have specific studios being built. You have a lot of these third-party games being handled in-house by the developers that are working on Xbox and PlayStation. So that's definitely a good thing and a big change from what we saw on the Nintendo Switch 1. And you're going to see more Japanese studios in particular actually take up and fund new studios or fund new sections within studios to get Nintendo Switch 2 versions of games done, or to work with Nintendo directly on an IP or something. Maybe we see something like Star Fox in the future, or maybe we see other Japanese studios take aim at certain IPs and build stuff around that. So I think that this is just the beginning when you're seeing something like this, and I'm glad that Koei Tecmo is getting them to work with this game. And it's It's coming out November 6th, so it's going to be out pretty soon here. Running at 60 FPS from what you can see in the most recent trailer from the Nintendo Direct. And the split screen doesn't run like at 5 frames per second like we saw with Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity on the Nintendo Switch 1. So it's good to have a stronger system that can handle all the enemies, that can handle what Hyrule Warriors throws at it, because it was a bit jarring going from Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition, which ran at 60 FPS on the Nintendo Switch 1, than going to what we got with Age of Calamity. So definitely good to be back at where Hyrule Warriors games should be running at, because it makes for smoother and better gameplay overall. So what do you guys think about the AAA game studio from Koei Tecmo and their first one here being Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment? It looks pretty cool. Let me know in the comment section below. But now we're going to move on to some pretty interesting, and I would say funny type of jabs that Sonic Racing Crossworlds is taking at Mario Kart World. So check out this first commercial from 1993, Sega Genesis commercial, Blast Processing. Then we'll take a look at the newest commercial for Sonic Racing Crossworlds.
The Sega Genesis has Blast Processing. Super Nintendo doesn't. So what's Blast Processing do? What if you don't have blast processing?
We all know that kart racing game. It's great. We don't need to show it to you. But what if you can blast through and race on a whole nother level? What if you could warp across different dimensions, fully customize and build out your machine, and compete head-to-head across different platforms? Or what if you want to roam around on the open road?
It was a great commercial back then, and they essentially recreated it, but they recreated it with Mario Kart World and Sonic Racing Crossworlds, which Sega has been taking a few shots at Nintendo over this, and I thought it was all in good fun. I thought that it was cool kind of going back and harkening back to those old commercials that I watched back in the day, like 30 years ago or something like that, and this newest one is pretty cool, kind of taking their shots overall. Look, Sonic Racing Crossworlds has nothing to lose overall. It's going with house money. They're making a game that's on all these different platforms, that's going to have a solid base behind it. Now, is it going to sell as much as Mario Kart World? Probably not, because Mario Kart World is bundled with the Nintendo Switch 2, and that there's just going to be way more people that are going to buy Mario Kart World. But at the same time, you might as well have a little bit of fun and get into the headlines, because otherwise you probably wouldn't get into a lot of headlines with just the new trailer. So I think that it's interesting to see. The trailer says Sonic Racing Crossworlds, come race on our level commercial. So I think that's pretty fun, and once again, it's all good and fun overall, and I think there's going to be a lot of people who do like Sonic Racing Crossworlds more because of the speed and because of kind of what they do in there compared to Mario Kart World. So what do you guys think overall when it comes to Sonic Racing Crossworlds, them taking some shots at Nintendo here with this commercial, going old school, that Sega type of style and everything? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section. All right, let's go and jump into the next topic here. We're going to talk about Super Mario Galaxy plus Super Mario Galaxy 2. We've got some more information on this game and what it's going to be supporting. Now, it looks like it's going to support mouse features overall, which is definitely good, because if you've never played Super Mario Galaxy, it doesn't have a dual analog type of setup to change the camera. What it has is that it has a fixed perspective, and I think you can kind of tilt it a little bit, but for the most part, it's a fixed perspective, and it gives you the best camera angle for where you are, and you use the right analog stick, at least on the Nintendo Switch 1, when it comes down to that, to use the little cursor to collect star bits, and then use that for an aimer or a pointer, because the game was originally played with just the analog stick, the buttons, and the Wii remote pointer to point and collect things and to waggle controls. So they've kind of changed that around here now, because with these mouse pointer controls, you're going to be able to easily collect the star bits and easily use the pointer controls overall. So I think that's definitely a good thing to add that in. Now, there is a little bit of confusion on some of the features for this game. I did see Croc O'Clock on Twitter post a few different things overall, so I wanted to go over what he had to say, but there are a few problems here. So one of the things was 4K at 120 FPS on docked mode. Switch 2 can't do 4K at 120 FPS, so maybe it's going to be 1080p at 120 FPS on the TV, but we'll see about that. But it does seem like it's 1080p 60 when it comes down to the standard, then maybe 4K 60 on the Nintendo Switch 2 with the free update. But of course, you have the additional chapter, you have the upgraded visuals. It does seem like they've redone some of the UI or fonts on some of the text, as Stealth pointed out as well. Improved UI, that's part of that there. Assist mode, in-game soundtrack, over 150 tracks overall. Amiibo support, 2-player single Joy-Con play, and of course those mouse controls as well. So we're gonna have to wait and see. I'm not 100% sure on the 120 FPS type of thing, so wait on that. But there are a number of different things that they've added into the experience. Now, do I think that it's worth the 70 for both of them when it comes to a value perspective, with just looking at how most developers will reprice these older games? Obviously, that might be a bit high. Now, when it comes to collectors and having both games on cart, that's actually probably worth it if you look at the prices that we saw with Super Mario 3D All-Stars. But once again, Nintendo already stated that that game was going to be a limited release, so I do think that people were knowing at some point they'd stop producing them and they'd get more rare overall. But I'm not going to pass up the opportunity to have Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 on a cartridge, so I'm definitely going to be picking it up. But I completely understand for people that are saying it's a bit too much. I agree with that. I think 50 or 60 would have been a much better price for the game, so I'm definitely not defending the higher price with that. Or 40 a piece on those games definitely seems a bit high. But I will say that both of these games are two of the best 3D platformers of all time. Super Mario Galaxy 2, I think, to me, is still the best 3D platformer of all time, even right now. You can stack it up against all these other 3D platformers that have came out since then in the 15 years since Super Mario Galaxy 2, and honestly, I still think that it's the best 3D platformer out there. So I'm excited to check it out on the Nintendo Switch 2. I started playing Super Mario Galaxy 2 on digital download on the Wii U again, and it was just crusty, and I did not like it because of how the backwards compatibility is handled on the Wii U. So I'm excited to actually play it with normal controls and play it anywhere that I want, portable mode, because there is quite a number of content in the game just going through. It's not going to be like a short game if you want to get the 100%. So I'm excited to actually be able to play anywhere that I want and get those 4K visuals as well. We'll see about 120 FPS or not, but we'll have to wait and see on that. But 4K 60 docked, so that's pretty good. Probably 1080p 60 FPS in handheld mode, so I think that's still pretty good. So what do you guys think when it comes to everything that we talked about here? There was a lot of topics. Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.